my fellow readers. In this video I'm going to talk about A Story of Seven Lives. This is the complete manga collection. So it's a single volume, but it's a thick one. And this is a little story that made me cry. So I'll read the back. A heartfelt tale of cat's survival and hope. Nanao used to be a house cat, but after tragedy struck, he was abandoned on the rough streets of Tokyo. Now alongside his best friend and fellow stray Machi, Nanao has to fight every day just to get by. Aside from foraging for food and finding a safe place to sleep, Nanao and Machi must remain vigilant about all sorts of dangers, including humans who want the stray cats gone. When a woman named Yoshino starts feeding the neighborhood cats, Nanao reluctantly bonds with her. But the woman has emotional scars and a past entwined with Nanao's. Can Nanao help her heal and perhaps heal himself in the process? So, I would kind of argue that Nanao forms the bond with Yoshino. I mean, he does eventually, but the more of the initial bond with Yoshino is Machi. But that's beside the point. Let's go back and into why this made me cry. So I picked this up because of the cats on the cover, and it was recommended as like a maybe like a cozy series. It's one of the new releases. This is a new series released here, and I just saw it and I'm like, cats. I like cat stories. Cheese Sweet Home is one of my favorite series, and yeah, I just was like, I'll grab it. It looks good, and it is good. It's brilliant, but so emotional. It made me so sad. So we do get introduced to Nanao, who's like got a crooked tail, and we do find out how he got the crooked tail, and it's really depressing. And Machi, his best friend, and that's Machi over here, and they are stray cats out in the world. So when we're wondering how Nanao became a stray cat, because Nanao has a very like special collar that Nanao still wears, and it's got a little bell. I mean, you can see it there. And so we want to know like what happened there. Meanwhile, the stray cats are all kind of talking because they are worried. They used to have a human that would help to feed them in the winter, but that has changed. So they're worried about how they're going to get by. Meanwhile, the neighborhood is actually meeting and talking about this. And instead of relying on like one person, they're going to rotate the care of the cats. So I think Yoshino's brother Kipe maybe volunteered. I don't remember. But they end up getting like the first round of taking care of the cats. Yoshino it appears to be frightened of the cats or put out by the cats. So she doesn't really want to have to deal with them, but Kipe was really excited about it. So they have to do the cats, but she's not looking forward to it. But then she starts noticing things about the cats. At that time, I don't believe Nanao was there. I don't remember what Nanao was doing, but Machi is there. And she notices that like Machi watches over the cats. And she tries to feed him, but like he'll snub and everything. Anyway, she's very drawn to Machi. Then she happens to spot Nanao at some point, and more comes about on what's going on with their relationship and also her, I guess, struggle to relate to the cats. And it goes to Nanao's backstory and what happened and how Yoshino and Nanao are bonded. And it's a tragedy that happened not that long before the story begins, where Yoshino was married to someone, and they couldn't at that point, who ran the bathhouse, who couldn't at that time live together. Well, he didn't run the bathhouse, but his family did. He actually had another job, but they weren't living together at the time, even though they were married. Yoshino was planning to go to Tokyo to live with him, but she was getting things set in Osaka where she was living, so she wasn't ready to move out there yet. Meanwhile, Yoshino was in Tokyo working and found a kitten and took the kitten in and was raising the kitten. And he would tell Yoshino about the cat and how he was looking forward to her coming out and meeting the cat. and he made a collar, special collar for the cat with the cat's name inside, which Nanao was written with the characters for 7 lives, which is why it's a story of 7 lives. And he had it all embroidered and nice. And yes, the kitten is Nanao, our main cat character. And so then we are told the story of what happened to Nanao's owner and how Nanao ended up on the street. And it's very sad, and I don't want to go through the whole details about that, but that was one thing that was majorly sad about it. But also, there's just so much that was sad, because it's the whole thought of dealing with, not dealing with, but like cats being abandoned, or not even necessarily purposely or intentionally abandoned, but sometimes just like the abandonment happens, much like Nanao, where it wasn't intended, but an accident occurs and the pet is forgotten. I don't know. There's just a lot of sadness. But there's also just the bits of the stories of what happens with Nanao and Machi. And I can't talk too much about them because I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but there's a lot of events that unfold. Meanwhile, Yoshino is 1, trying to get over her discomfort with cats, but 2, trying to find Nanao and then bond with Nanao, because Nanao is that remaining piece of her husband. So she does kind of want to conquer that, but then a whole bunch of other stuff happens. There's also these characters that are abusive towards cats, like they'll catch them, and there was one character in particular that would literally abuse the cats and harm them. And then we see later some of the cats that were some of the people that were like cat catchers, who either would harm the cats or they'll sell the cats for other people to harm. And it's just horrible, like thinking about that whole thing. And you know that it happens. You know that it happens everywhere. This is not like, oh, it's a Japan thing. It's an everywhere thing, where there are certain people who like to abuse smaller animals. And cats, especially because they reproduce very quickly, are one of the easy targets, because there's a lot of strays because of the quick reproduction. And people mistreat them quite a bit. And they will, above cats is dogs, and they'll do the same thing to dogs, and it's horrible. So yeah, part of what made me sad was just like that treatment of animals and this lack of care toward them. It was really, really sad. But also just the relationship developing between Yoshino and the cats is very sweet, so that also made me sad. I don't know. And the relationships of the cats themselves, also A+. Like, I just loved the whole thing. Again, I loved that this was completed in 1 volume, so I didn't have to, like, buy a bunch of them. And it was such an emotional tale, and I can't go over, like, the ending or anything because I don't want to spoil it, but it kind of has you on the edge of your seat by the end, and also crying a bit, and it's good. It is good. If you're an animal lover, you should enjoy this. You might cry if you're an animal lover, but it's so well worth it. There's also a part at the end that talks about a TNR group. So the TNR groups will often go and they'll capture the cats, and a lot of times, they make sure that the cat gets fixed, and then they'll either release that cat, or sometimes they can work with like local organizations to try to get that cat adopted, but sometimes if there's no room for that, they will have to just release the cat back into the wild, but now they can't populate. And most areas have a local cat TNR, and I would encourage you to support them if you can find one in your area, because it's very important to get the stray population under control so that animals are not living that kind of life. It's very rough. And I know some people think that cats can just get by on their own because they have claws and everything, but they can't. It's not that easy. It's not an okay life for them to be living. They should not be. If you have a pet, that pet should be fixed. And especially if you are letting that cat out, don't. I don't know what else to say about that, but just, if you do, just make sure the animal is fixed, but also try not to just let your cat wander. I know it's tempting and we think it's better for the cat. They have some kind of wild, they're not, okay, they're domesticated. They're not a wild animal. They're a cat, they're a pet, they're domesticated. That's how they end up tortured or dead or whatever, because we're not taking care of them the way that we're supposed to. This reflects on that. I don't want to preach on like the whole animal thing, but it does bother me a great deal. I don't want to see animals left out there. And I live in an area where sometimes people like to just dump their unwanted pets, and it bothers me. So just please don't. They're not made for that. They're domesticated for a reason. Like, we made them dependent on us, and they're not made to live on their own. They're not wild animals. Okay, now that's out of the way, just remember, spay and neuter your pets, and maybe help with local TNRs, because we don't want animals to suffer. And if you want a reflection of how that works in real life, read it here in A Story of 7 Lives. You can see what it actually is like, and the importance of TNR groups and adoption as well. Please adopt your pets and control the pet population. That's it for this video. Until next time, bye.